First on film and entertainment, and there is a big blockbuster that we are going to discuss today. Now, I don't care whether it's an independent film or a blockbuster as long as it's a movie that leaves an impression, and this one most certainly does. Talking about impressions, we have got Greg King. Do you do impressions or do you not?
I don't do impressions, no. Take me as you get me.
Well, but hang on, But you do dad jokes very well, or badly. Lame dad jokes, yes. That's what you're known for. Now, What about you, Peter Krauss? Do you don't impress me, but there you go. Do you do impressions?
No, I don't. It's all a charade.
Thank you very much indeed. Very boom boom. I'm talking about Civil War, not between us, but what a prosaic film in the sense that it was written before all the hoopla that's going on and going down in America and so on. And I'm a big fan of the film director and the writer, Alex Garland. He's made some really good... Ex Machina really stood out in my mind. What about you, Peter? Do you like his filmmaking style?
Absolutely. He likes to go out there with his subject matter.
Yeah, very much so. Greg, you're a fan or not?
You know what? Some of his stuff, especially for those vampire films he did early in his career, The Beach, but he does some esoteric stuff as well. A bit more.
I referenced Ex Machina. That really stood out in my mind. But in this one as well, I mean, this is this blockbuster. I got to say to you up front, this is probably the most noteworthy movie that I've seen since I picked not just me, but I think the world picked Oppenheimer as being the best film of last year. Civil War is an extraordinary film. I mean, this is about America at war with itself in this it's a bloody take no prisoners war. I thought it was absolutely super special. The president is played by Nick Offerman, and he's declared that basically America's on the verge of victory, his side, if you like, in this war. But it couldn't be further from the truth. And looking to take over is the combined military might of Texas and California. Covering the conflict are seasoned war photographer Lee, played by Kirsten Dunst, and the journalist Joel, a Brazilian actor called Wagner Moura, and they work for Reuters. The president has not given an interview about this conflict for 14 months. He's done news conferences as such or stand-ups, but not one-on-one interviews. And this pair is determined to break the drought. And to try to reach him in Washington, D.C., they need to drive a hazardous, indirect route of nearly 1,400 kilometres. I'm talking driving, right? And he certainly won't be rolling out the welcome mat to meet them. This is the president. Of course, he doesn't know they're coming. And along the way, many untold dangers are lurking. But these journos are all about doing their jobs. And tagging along with them, a veteran New York Times correspondent called Sammy, played by Stephen McKinley Henderson, and a 23-year-old wet-behind-the-ears photographer called Jesse, played by Kaylee Spaney. To the latter, the photographer Jesse, the full horror, the heartbreak of war is writ large on the eye-opening journey that she's about to undertake with the other three. All are frequently at imminent risk, including from lawless individuals that have lost any sense of humanity. And among them is a recalcitrant shooter played by Jesse Plemons. What a diabolical role and how wonderfully presented it is. But I tell you what, scares the bejesus out of you. Mentioned the writer and director Alex Garland, and he really does step it up a notch. This is his breakout blockbuster film. It's intense, it's visceral, has a lot to say about the civil disobedience in society and where it can lead. And it does so by focusing on the documenters of war and how they go about their business. It's a story that's disturbingly compelling. It's enriched by really strong performances. The build-up of the atrocities of war deeply ingrained in Lee, the Kirsten Dunst character. She's covered many wars as Lee, and that world weariness is written all over Dunst's face. Wagner Moura channels Joel's gung-ho nature, whose excitement is tempered by the harsh realities that lie ahead. Kaylee Spaney's wide-eyed innocence, I thought that was a feature of her role as the newbie Jessie. And Stephen McKinley Henderson portrays Sammy as a wily old fox who should have retired, but can't find it within himself to do that. Clemens, well, just downright evil. Thought the visuals, Rob Hardy is responsible for the cinematography, and the soundscape as well are unforgettable, scarring their seared deeply into my mind. Garland has used his large canvas admirably. The place to see this, if you can get there, is IMAX. It is the venue. The ugliness, the shock and awe are palpable throughout. The brutality of war is laid bare. Civil War, it's rich, it's redolent, it's seared into my psyche. I thought it was an extraordinary film, Peter.
Absolutely extraordinary. And I mean, this film has so many elements to it in terms of references that it makes. I mean, obviously it references the January 6th riots on the White House. It references the state of play of politics, Democrats and Republicans at the moment, especially the Republicans and Trump. It references the Civil War of the 19th century, where North fought the South. And there is so much to into the story to go into in terms of the American psyche and the way it is redolent with division and conflict and so on. This is a very impressive film because of the way it very coldly presents us with this possible dystopian future. And Kirsten Dunst as the photojournalist is just so superb as the world-weary journalist.
Outstanding. And I tell you what talent in that family, married to Jesse Plemons, who plays these nasty roles with vitriol every time that I see him do it. There's a lot of talent in that family, isn't there?
There is, but did you know that Jesse Plemons was not originally going to play that role?
I did know that. I thought that was an amazing story, like the actor who was going pulled out at the last moment, and his wife dobbed in Jesse Plemons, who was there, I think, minding their child or something on set, and she doesn't know whether she's actually done him a favour because he's going to be the most hated man on screen.
Exactly right. And we should acknowledge Katie Spaney because she, of course, played Priscilla in that film, and she is so gorgeous.
She's so, that wide-eyed innocence.
Yes,
she's got a gorgeous, evocative face, hasn't she? Really strong. I mean, it's interesting because suddenly she's introduced to the world with Priscilla, and she followed, which this really was her showpiece, and all of a sudden she's now the next big thing, and Civil War will absolutely catapult her to another level, I reckon.
Yes. I just wanted to mention Leave the World Behind as another reference point of filmmakers who are looking at a future America, which is looking quite grim, actually, in terms of some filmmakers' views. And also in Civil War, the notion about foreigners is such an intriguing one and has a lot of resonance as well. So, look, a very impressive film, and even though it's quite disturbing and violent at times, it's a film that I certainly highly recommend,
In terms of its disturbance, though, I think there will be people who find it too much. I spoke to somebody just before we came on air who saw it and said to me, I'm really pleased I didn't see it at IMAX. And I said, I couldn't be further from your view. I reckon you've got to see it at IMAX. And he said it was so full on. And so some people, those people who may only go to the movies, 2 or 3 times a year, who want to go for pure entertainment, this is not entertainment in that sense because it's really hard hitting. So I think, be aware of that. It's got an MA rating. I was surprised actually they've got an MA rating rather than an R. Some of the level of violence here, but it's 109 minutes in duration. Ripper of a film. Greg, you're going to be seeing it between now and when we speak next week, I suspect.
It's on my list to do tomorrow now.
Good stuff. Well, okay, Peter, I'll be very interested to see what your score is here, what your score is compared to mine. So go for it. What's Civil War in your eyes?
Oh, a very impressive film. 9 out of 10.
Wow. And I've given it a 9 out of 10 as well. And that's the highest score I've given since Oppenheimer's 10. Which was very unusual for me. So there we go. We will now move to another movie that I understand, Peter, you're going to say, well, no, it depends on the movie, etc. Here's a movie that didn't sustain its running time, which was 2 hours and 13 minutes. That's La Chimera. It could have been done and would have had more impact if it was 100 minutes, don't you think?
No, I don't agree with you.
All right. Well, in the context of this film, the Chimera is something people search for but never manage to find. It's a fictional story set among a band of tombaroli. They are Italian grave robbers looking for archaeological wonders, and their lucky charm is an eclectic British archaeologist called Arthur, played by Josh O'Connor. He finds things that others can't, and he uses this forked twig as a divining rod. It's been a while since I've seen a divining rod. Greg, have you seen one lately?
Not lately, no.
No, I mean, they used to be all the thing. I don't know. Look, I'm sorry. I'm somewhat of a skeptic. Do you reckon they work, is my question, Peter.
Just water under the bridge.
Yes, I was going to say, have you tried one lately? Anyway, Arthur's just been released from prison. He's had a short stint there. And we are in Tuscany in the early 1980s. And that's where, during Arthur's earlier studies, he fell in love with a girl called Beniamina, who was the daughter of a local aristocrat called Flora, played by Isabella Rossellini. I think she relishes roles like this. Anyway, Arthur still pines for Beniamina. His memories live on in his dreams. So does Flora, who continues to maintain an unrealistic hope of her return. I don't think we ever find out how she died, but she did. Anyway, Arthur's fallen in with a rowdy crew of 20-somethings who pretend to make their living as farmers and entertainers. But they actually pilfer the area's ancient Etruscan tombs for earthenware and ornaments to sell on the black market, hoping to one day strike it rich. And this is, of course, where Arthur, who finds things others can't, comes in very, very handy. Meanwhile, Flora has a live-in maid and a tone-deaf music student in Italia, played by Carol Duarte. And she catches Arthur's eye. However, she has her own secrets. Alice Rohrwaxer has woven what I think is a rather intriguing, comedic, adventure, fantasy romance in La Chimera. It's got ethereal quality about it, and it took me quite a while to become involved and to understand exactly what was going down, because I never read about movies before I go along. I knew nothing about this. Once the penny dropped, I did appreciate it a lot more, and I enjoyed the second half more than the first. But, let's be honest, the concept of grave robbers and those that profit from their crime is appalling, and it doesn't sit at all comfortably with me. Still, I thought the performances in this movie were solid and naturalistic. Josh O'Connor, he occupies the headspace of the dishevelled protagonist rather well. You get the feeling that with his gift, he's very much caught up in his own headspace. Carol Duarte does a fine job transposing Italia from subservient to buoyant, and I thought that Isabella Rossellini was very spirited as the family matriarch. Vincenzo Nimolato has a good handle on his roguish persona as a leading member of the gang, the 20-somethings I spoke about, and Lou Roy Localenet has spark as the woman in whom he shows more than a passing interest. Her name is Melody, the character that she plays, and she's familiar with the mysterious fence that the crew uses to offload their finds, a person known as Spartaco, played by Alba Rohrwaxer, who I dare say would be related to the writer and director Alice. I don't know whether you know that, Peter. You seem to know. Sisters. There we go. Capturing the joie de vivre of the impoverished gypsy spirit is critical and nicely realised in what I thought was the production design of La Chimera. It's a picture which is very much for selective tastes. It does require concentration to get the most out of, and I found it interesting but stretched, Gregory King. What about you?
I found it stretched, and like you, Alex, I found it really hard to get into the film with the first half, which was slow moving, and as you said, it did pick up a little bit towards the end, but I just couldn't engage with the characters, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was
interesting, but I just couldn't engage with the characters.
Well, isn't it unusual? I mean, the Josh O'Connor character, how does this eclectic British archaeologist come to Italy in the first place? I mean, there was no explanation. I suppose people do, strange things, but I would have liked a little bit more background. Would you not?
Yeah, a little bit more would have helped understand the character a lot more, I think, yes.
Yeah. Peter, you obviously got a lot more out of it, and that you're entitled to be wrong. It's okay.
Thank you very much. I dreamt about that comic.
Yes, you do.
Now, anyway, no, look, La Chimaera refers to, of course, two aspects.
Like Chimaera, is it? It's Chimaera, okay. Is that how you pronounce it?
That's the Italian pronunciation, yeah.
Chimaera, okay.
Yeah, La Chimaera.
We call it Chimaera.
Yeah, we call it La Chimaera. So is Peter really pater?
Or patisserie? No, anyway.
Patisserie, that's it, yes. Okay. You're a nice little morsel. There we go. You go ahead.
Be careful where this is going. Now, La Chimaera references both Greek mythology and the sort of that elusive object of desire in terms of finding something for wealth. Mm-hmm. And Alice Rohrwaxer, who directed The Wonders and Happy as Lazaro, which was such a superb film, she likes to deal with people or characters who are just outside the mainstream, who are perhaps living an experience that isn't quite in accord with everyone else around them.
Sorry, when you say just outside the mainstream, this is a long way outside the mainstream.
Well, yes, because there is a dreamlike aspect to this film in terms of recovery.
Yes, absolutely. Okay.
Because there is a consciousness issue in this film as well, Josh O'Connor's character and what he understands or experiences. Look, I found this film very impressive because it again deals with, as I said, people who are not quite in accord with who we are as ordinary individuals and are seeking things, looking for things that we are not necessarily happy about, but that it is for their own self-development or for their own, for their own victories of whatever. So finding these historical artifacts is a way of, in some way, finding something that matches their personality and their quest. So because of that, the film becomes a quest, a journey that has a dreamlike quality to it, which I liked very much, especially because Rohrwaxer deals with filmmaking in a way that is not the usual type of narrative structure. So as a commentary on various people and lives, and set in the 1980s as it is, I thought it was a very interesting and impressive film that, yes, does require a certain amount of conscious ability to understand the way the film is going. But I really liked it.
Did you? Okay, so let's start with Greg, because I think Greg will give it the lowest score. I'll give it the second, and you'll give it the third. La Chimaera or Chimera or whatever. Is it like a Camaro? The old car? No, not.
No. Shivering presence or something is basically what a Chimera is. Oval shape.
Did you say heavenly presence?
No, it's ethereal.
Ethereal presence. Yeah, that's why I mentioned the word ethereal. Pardon me. All right, Greg. So this is my ignorance showing through. My heathen qualities. I apologise. Having said that, what would you give La Chimaera?
I'm only going to give it 6 out of 10.
Okay, as I thought, M rated 133 minutes. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. Peter?
And I'm giving it 8 out of 10. I really liked it.
Right, so I'm right again because my average is the average. Is that right? Is that what you're saying to me, Peter? Is that right, hey? No, you're not. Okay. All right, fair enough. You are on JR 88 FM. Hey, subscribe to us. $54 a year it costs. That's all it does. You can, of course, listen for free. But we need community support. That's what community radio stations are all about. I'm about to cough. You talk amongst yourselves for a moment. That goes down really well on radio, does it not, Peter?
Mm-hmm. Where's that dump button when you need it?
Well, exactly. We needed that. So, yeah, speaking too much. Monkey Man. No, sorry, I wasn't referring to you, Peter. Cully, I'm going to be sued. Sue, grab it and run. Monkey Man is a name of a movie which I've been wanting to talk about for some time. Intense fight and chase scenes. Yeah, I mean, if that's what you're into. This is 121 minutes, MA rated. And it's kind of like East meets West. It's an action thriller inspired by the legend. I'm going to mispronounce this. You can correct me, Peter or Greg. The legend of Hanuman. There's a deity in Hinduism who's quite strong and heroic and loving. And there's a character called Kid, played by Dev Patel, who loved his mother, Neela, who was murdered when he was still young. And his memories of her are deep and enduring. So all these years later, Kid seeks retribution against the greedy and corrupt officials that were behind his mother's slaying. And in his sights is a supposed spiritual leader called Baba and the corrupt chief of police, Raina Singh. And now Kid ekes out a meagre living. He puts on a gorilla mask. He gets beaten and bloodied in an underground fight club operated by Tiger. And Tiger's a role filled by Shalto Copley, South African actor. To get to Rana, Kid finds additional work as a kitchen hand at a restaurant cum club operated by a ruthless individual called Queenie. And she provides drugs and prostitutes to wealthy clients who include Raina Singh, the chief of police. By prevailing upon one of Queenie's gophers, Kid gets access to the VIP area, and a bloody confrontation with Raina follows. A lot more is set to play out before Kid finds his ultimate revenge after he's trained in mortal combat, which brings mind and body together, hence the East meets West. I think this has got a lot in common, Monkey Man, with the ultra-violent John Wick series, although it is not as good. The plot, again, felt stretched and repetitive, 121 minutes MA rated, certainly didn't sustain its 2-hour, 1-minute running time. And at times I found myself switching off. I was waiting for the elongated scenes to end. So, as the co-writer and a first-time director, Dev Patel has been indulgent. Look, he fares better in the acting stakes, at least if you buy into the smouldering volcano persona that his character adopts. And so too Shalto Copley, who, he's sleaze personified as the illegal fight promoter. Look, even though I've been on multiple visits to India, and I thoroughly enjoyed those visits, and people were lovely, and the places to see were quite intoxicating, especially the Taj, I listened closely to what I was hearing and seeing, but I had difficulty understanding several of the accents in this movie. Having said that, notwithstanding that the film is visceral, which is the second time I've used that word today, the lack of dialogue also concerned me. And yeah, the action scenes are well choreographed, but I found the constant camera movement, the fast editing was quite distracting. Got the impression that the filmmakers thought that was the best way to attract a younger audience. Also, much of Monkey Man is obvious. You know relatively early on exactly where it's heading. Nor can I categorically say that the journey is all that worthwhile taking. Mixing the mythical, the religious, and the kick-butt actioner was a bridge too far for me. As much as I didn't want to, I struggled with this movie, which appears to be heavily marketed as we speak. Also worth pointing out that I generally do like tense action movies, the genre I enjoy, but Monkey Man, I reckon it's a try-hard pick, but one that didn't come together as well as I would have liked it to. What do you reckon, Peter?
I actually like this film.
Of course you did.
Because
you did. Right,
because
we move on to... No, go ahead.
Because it is actually a step above John Wick. John Wick is a very straightforward sort of revenge drama, full of elongated, as you've mentioned, action sequences and so on. What Dev Patel has done in this film is he's mixed that sort of Hanuman superhero type religious sort of quality to trying to achieve something for the downtrodden, for the poor, for those who are treated badly. And I found it...
Well, he's tried. I don't think he's worked... that's my concern. I don't think it's worked as well as it should have worked, given that he is trying to combine the mythical and the religious and the actioner. That's why I struggled.
Well, I think it actually works because there is a real point or purpose to the journey, the violent journey that he's undertaken. And what I also found so interesting is the use of transgender community and the gay community as part of that downtrodden sort of atmosphere. I thought this is a very clever sort of integration of how people are treated so badly and revenge has to be sought. Look, the whole Fight Club sort of aspect is well achieved early on in the film, and the use of the monkey mask to portray Dev Patel's character as potentially a hero who is going to avenge the treatment of so many people I thought was well done. And in fact, there's even a reference to John Wick in the film itself very early on, when there's a comment made about, oh, do you think you're going to be a John Wick? And I thought, how interesting that he does a bit of self-referencing to a possible influence on his film Monkey Man. I like the idea of defeating power and control with that sort of aggressive sort of stance that he takes in this film. I think he did it very well. Yes, it's not a perfect film in many respects, because it does go on a little, but nevertheless, I thought dealing with subject matter that isn't always dealt with in this type of revenge drama, I give him kudos for making, I think, quite an interesting film.
Greg, surely you didn't think as much of it as Peter?
I did enjoy this. It's a really perfectly violent, brutal and blood-soaked revenge thriller, which I called an Indian John Wick, basically. But I thought the action sequences here were quite well staged. This is actually something of a passion project for Patel, who wrote the script and also directed the film.
Yeah, he's been wanting this to be made for a long time, Greg. That's quite true, yeah.
And I think he proves himself to be quite an interesting filmmaker behind the camera there, who shows plenty of promise. And I like some of the stylish choices he made in the way he framed and staged some of these brutal, fast-paced and carefully choreographed fight sequences, which showed influence of both martial arts cinema and the kinetic action cinema of Korea. And there's also a touch of Taxi Driver thrown in for good measure as he tries to protect this prostitute who works at the club as well. So I thought that was a nice tie-in as well. I thought the cinematographer has done a good job in shooting the action, capturing the action with handheld cameras to take us into the thick of it all, and creates a vivid contrast between the slums and the dirty streets of the city and the bright neon lit interior of the club where some of the action takes place there. Yeah, I thought this was quite well done there, and Patel has obviously worked out here to bulk up for the kick-ass action hero he plays here, undergone a bit of a physical transformation. And this is a bit of a different role for him. He's better known for roles in things like the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, Slumdog Millionaire, and Lion and that. But he's undergone a remarkable physical transformation here. And apparently he suffered quite a few injuries during the filming there because of the physicality of it all. But I just wonder, could this be his audition to become the next James Bond?
Well, that's interesting. That's an interesting thought. You think he's got a realistic chance of being the next James Bond?
Well, on the showing here he has, yes.
Okay, all right.
And I thought a guy called Peter Bash provided some much-needed comic relief with his performance here, but I thought the villain of the piece was a bit of a one-dimensional cardboard cutout without any real depth.
Okay, well, score. I'll give you the low score then. I'm giving it a 6 out of 10 for Monkey Man. It's I wanted it to be sort of more cohesive, and it's MA. It's 121 minutes. Greg, what about you?
6 to 6.5.
Okay, so so you spoke of it more fondly, but it's still only 6 to 6.5. So
when I compare it to John Wick, it doesn't quite rise to that heights, unlike Peter.
There you go. And so, Peter, go on. I reckon you'll give this an 8 to 8.5. What are you giving it?
Just before I give it a score, I should mention the film, even though it's set in India, was actually shot in Indonesia, which I found so interesting. Anyway, I give the film 7 out of 10.
So only a 7 after all. So the average is very close to what I was saying. If I was a 6, Greg was a 6 to 6.5, and you're a 7. There we go. So does it? Okay, what is it? What score does it need to get to be a decent film? I would have thought a 7. In general. Okay, I want to know this from you, Greg. If you give a film a 7, would that make it a decent film?
Yeah.
Okay, Peter?
Of course. 7 and above is a very decent score.
So collectively, this doesn't quite get there. Close, but no cigar. That's what.
Well, collectively, yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay. Now let's move to Origin. Now, okay, so this is it's a movie that did it need to be as long as it is? I'll ask you that straight off, Peter. What do you think?
Yes, it does.
Greg?
No, I thought it was a bit too long and a bit repetitive for what it did.
Yes, I totally agree with you. So, okay, let me start on this journey. It was an interesting concept, and it spent a lot of time trying to convince itself that it needed the length. But I just want 2 hours, 21 minutes is what we're talking about, and it's rated M. Isabel Wick Wilkerson, played by Ajanu Ellis Taylor, does not know it, but she's about to lose the two most important people in her life inside a year. And a third is going to follow not long after. So they're basically going to go to God. And that happened soon after she's published her first novel, which won her the Pulitzer Prize for drama. So the litany, I'll call it what it is, the litany of disaster in terms of death is more than most people could bear. And yet, in spite of everything that's crumbling around her, Wilkerson finds a way to pen another really important piece of work, namely her second book. And the trigger's provided by the editor of the Times, a person called Amari Selvin, a role filled by Blair Underwood. He prevails upon Wilkerson to write an authoritative piece in the wake of the slaying, you might remember this name, of African-American Trayvon Martin. And Martin was killed at the age of 17 on the 26th of February 2012. I find it hard to believe it's been that many years. It's extraordinary. He was unfortunately fatally shot by a 28-year-old Hispanic-American called George Zimmerman. Although Wilkerson tells Selvin that she's on hiatus from the paper, from the Times, and from short-form journalism or writing, she agrees to listen to a recording of the Martin shooting. And that precipitates a deep dive into the origin of oppression against peoples who are considered lowly. Wilkerson insists that that isn't about racism. Rather, it's a reflection of the caste system, whether that involves African Americans, Jews in Nazi Germany, or Dalits in India. She maintains all these people have been marginalised, and she links the subjugation of the Jews in Europe to the way Americans treated blacks. She sets out on a fact-finding mission. She travels to Germany. She goes to India. And she travels in her native America. Agree with Wilkerson's theory or not, the challenge for the writer and director Eva Duvernay was to translate this concept into an understandable and watchable movie. Her inspiration was a book written by Wilkerson called Caste, The Origins of Our Discontents. Duvernay has chosen an artistic interpretation. And although Origin is linear, Wilkerson's journey is punctuated by frequent flashbacks to events that unfolded in her life and throughout history. The latter harks back to bold research in America's Deep South, to a Nazi meeting determining the fate of the Jews, and to the emergence of a heroic Indian figure. Although the acting is heartfelt, led admirably, I thought, by Ajanu Ellis Taylor, the film took a long time to take off. Then it became repetitious and, is that word again, stretched. Once the road that Wilkerson was on was established, getting there became somewhat tortuous. And make no mistake, many of the incidents depicted are truly shocking. In fact, they eat into one's psyche. But I couldn't help thinking I was at university being lectured. And I say that because the point seemed to be proving Wilkerson's theory, even though it was questioned along the way. There's no doubt I was moved by what I saw, but I was still left frustrated by the circuitous route that the film took. Also, I should mention John Bernthal. He plays Wilkerson's husband, Brett Hamilton. It is called Origin. It's 100 minutes that is turned into 141. In other words, what I'm saying is 100 minutes would have done me fine, Greg King. What about you?
Yeah, look, this is a film that's got some big ideas and deals with some heavyweight material, but it is a film that I think struggles to connect with the audience. As you mentioned there, it looks at all these things from the past, references to the treatment of the Jews in World War II, slavery, with some quite confronting images there on the slave ships, the concentration camps and all that kind of thing. But I just found a film that made it really hard to connect emotionally or with the audience. It's more of an intellectual exercise.
It is. It's a headbanger. That's right.
Yeah.
Head scratcher, headbanger. I mean, look, I think it's one of those things. Making esoteric meaningful to everybody is a challenge that any filmmaker can tackle, that won't necessarily succeed in pulling off. It's conceptually, it's a good idea. Does it really work, Greg? I suppose that's my question to you.
No, it didn't really work for me. I was scratching my head at times, and I just, as you said, I found some of it a little bit repetitive and a little bit cold.
Peter, you're going to think this is a masterpiece. Go ahead.
I really like the film.
Of course you did.
Surprise, surprise. Yes, I know. And
do you dislike anything?
Well, wait for it. But anyway, Eva Duvernay is an underrated African-American filmmaker, and she makes films that are quite distinctive about the Black experience in the US. I mean, look at her film Selma, which I thought was such a wonderful film and so underrated in many respects. What she has done, Eva has done, is taken Isabel Wilkerson's novel, which has looked at investigating the reasons why humanity is so hating of other people, and of the lower caste system being such an important aspect of that research. And so what Eva has done is combined that sort of investigative journalism and her own personal reflections, as seen through the eyes of her lead actress, Ingenue Ellis-Taylor, and turned it into a story of journey and discovery about the reasons for man's hatred of other men or other women, as the case might be. And I found this very impressive because it was a carefully charted journey that Eva has taken in adapting the novel, and has come up with, I think, some very important issues and aspects. Yes, it is carefully and slowly developed, but I didn't mind that because the whole reason for a journey is to take time to build up the information and the eventual final outcomes that the film comes up with. I really liked the film. I think it had a lot to say and draws together a lot of material which is not necessarily that well known insofar as the key aspects of that hatred and the core of that hatred. So I really liked the film, and there are some interviews and some other things in the film as well, which I think really comes together to portray this whole notion of anyone who's lower caste is in for it.
Do you think that she proves the theory, or do you think she's shoving it down our throats?
Well, I mean, any sort of theory has to be proven, and I don't know about shoving it down the throat.
Did you not feel you were being lectured? That's the point that I was making.
I felt I was in the middle of an academic treatise, but I didn't feel I was lectured. I felt I was led along a journey and a pathway that gave me a very interesting conclusion.
Do you think, with the concept that Greg and I talked about a moment ago, the idea of turning something that's esoteric into a narrative feature, which is a real challenge, do you think this should be tackled the way it has been tackled in Origin? Could it have been done in a more universally acceptable form that would have given it more mass appeal?
Well, look, she could have turned it into a documentary, for goodness sake. To turn it into a narrative, which also has personal stories and other aspects to it, I think does make it accessible to an audience. Yes, not everyone will necessarily want to access that, but that's fine. I mean, we have to be careful not to dismiss a filmmaker's approach.
I get that, but Peter, okay, if you are going to try and make this more accessible, especially because of its esoteric nature, do you not need to be cognizant of not making it, stretching it out the way they did? I mean, a film can take its time. It doesn't need to be 2 hours, 21 minutes long, as Origin was in this case. It takes a long time to get there. No?
And that's fine. I admired the journey. It didn't bother me one bit.
All right, Greg, you're going to give it the low mark. I'm going to give it medium. So what's your low mark for Origin? Rated M, 141 minutes.
Because I struggled to connect with it on a lot of notions, I'm going to give it 6 out of 10.
I'm giving it a 7 out of 10 because I still think it was worthy, but it wasn't as good as it could have been. And Peter, you will be giving it around about an 8 out of 10. Go on.
You have read my mind. 8 out of 10 from me.
So does that make me right again? 6, 7, 8? What's the midpoint?
It might be right or it might be left.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Okay, we are going to... Well, do you view that as an omen, Peter?
Maybe the first one.
Thank you very much indeed, which is exactly what we're going to talk about. For the First Omen. Now, okay, do you remember the original Omen, Peter?
I did. Gregory Peck, of course, starred in that, a film from 1976.
So was the original Omen a First Omen? Sorry, that's a dad joke. Rick, why didn't you come up with that, please?
I didn't want to hog your limelight, Alex. It's your show.
Thank you very much. All right, so
there's an omen of things to come, I think.
It is.
I like the original Omen too, along with The Exorcist. I think it was one of the great horror films of the 70s.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Well,
the mood, the music, everything Gregory Peck cast against type a little bit there. Lee Remick, and David Warner as a priest who came to a sticky end.
What did we say? 1976, something like that. Is that what?
Yep.
Okay, so this is about the First Omen's about the depths to which the church will go to maintain power and control. We're talking 1971. All right, so obviously before the Omen came out.
That gives you a couple of thematic similarities to another film that came out just a couple of weeks ago called Immaculate.
Immaculate, exactly, which I still have to catch up on. This is about a young American woman called Margaret Dano, played by Nell Tiger Free, great name, moves from America to Rome to become a nun. And she was a wayward child. She was an orphan. She saw the way forward when she was mentored by a now Cardinal Lawrence, played by Bill Nye. And the Cardinal is actually there to meet and encourage the woman who simply loves life and loves the church when she arrives at the centre of Catholicism. Dano is what's called a novitiate. And a novitiate is a nun in training, the probationary period, if you like, of her spiritual journey. She's housed in an orphanage for girls run by the abbess, Sister Silva, Sonia Braga, who oversees the nuns and the novitiates that live there. And what greets Dano is hardly what she expected. First up, there's her roommate, Luz Velez, played by Maria Caballero. She has had much less of a sheltered upbringing than Margaret Dano. And she encourages Dano to let her hair down, and a big night on the town follows. Secondly, at the orphanage, Dano is rather intrigued by and takes to the oldest girl there, Carlita Sciana, played by Nicole Sorais. I think she's about 16. She's isolated. She's ostracized. Sister Silva warns Dano about Sciana, but Sciana's witnessed horrors at the orphanage, to which Dano also becomes privy. It's then that an Irish priest called Father Brennan, played by Ralph Ineson, seeks out Dano to warn her of a terrifying conspiracy within the church, one that will come to envelop her. This is a prequel to the classic horror film franchise that began with Richard Donner's The Omen. And, of course, that introduced us to Damien the Antichrist. The First Omen, well, it's co-written, directed by Acacia Stevenson, and Acacia Stevenson cut her teeth on TV series, and this marks her feature film debut. Thanks partly to lighting and sound and some eye-opening close-up photography or cinematography, it has shock value. In other words, it bites before the story becomes, well, I reckon, preposterous. I did appreciate the wide-eyed innocence and the realisation that all is not what it seems, displayed by Nell Tiger Free. So too the characterisation by Sonia Braga as the head of the orphanage, who's privy to much more than she lets on. Maria Caballero adds some spice as the party girl nun in the making. Ralph Ineson leans into his role as the troubled man of the cloth who fears the worst. And Nicole Serrais provides an edginess as the orphan surrounded by a sinister darkness. Before it's over, the filmmakers have angled for a sequel, this being a vehicle to reboot the franchise. How best to enjoy this? How best to enjoy The First Omen? Suspend belief, allow the jump scares and the creepiness to take over, and then I think you can get quite a bit out of it. Called The First Omen. Greg, what did you think?
An interesting film that it works as a prequel to the 1976 original there, and there are a few moments that do reference the original film. Early scene sets up an extended scene I thought was heading for another defenestration. There's a scene where a nun is on a balcony saying, "This is all for you," which also recalls a scene from the original Omen. So they've been careful to draw some connections between this film and the original to set it up as a proper prequel there. So some of the thematic links are quite strong there. I thought a couple of the performances were quite strong and good there. Bill Nye sort of does what he does well. A little bit uncomfortable, untrustworthy early on, a bit unctuous. The Mother Superior, the thing was quite intimidating, I thought. Did that quite well. And as you said, a few jump scares. A lot of action takes place in dark lighting there. A slow build-up of suspense and horror there. The ending is not quite as graphic as the ending of Immaculate, which I mentioned a bit before there. And it's interesting that that conspiracy theorists are now coming out on social media. And in the original, the child of the devil was called Damien Thorne. In the Omen 3, he became president of the United States with the initials DT. The obvious link has been drawn.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So would you recommend?
Yes.
Would you recommend this film?
Yeah, it is certainly better than a couple of the other Omen films. I thought it did quite well. Better than the awful remake that came out a few years ago with Lee Schreiber, which was pretty ordinary. Not a patch on the first and the best Omen, and the better than the sequel, Damien. Yeah, look, it's in midfield for me in the Omen mythology.
And The First Omen's 119 minutes, rated MA. Peter, what did you think of it?
I think the Catholic Church should set up a class action against many of these filmmakers who obviously see the Catholic Church and horror and the Antichrist and so on as being such a significant aspect of filmmaking. I think they need to have their revenge.
Well, look, let's be honest. The Church hasn't exactly covered itself in glory, has it? In many respects, as good as religion can be. Whichever religion it is, there's been people exploiting it, shall we say?
Certainly, that is the case. But in this film, I thought it was much more exploitative. I really felt this First Omen as a prequel was unnecessary. I think it covered so much in many respects of the ground of the 1976 film. I think leading up to where that film was released, The Omen, I thought, this was fairly obvious, the usual scares and blood and violence. Bill Nye obviously has become the new Michael Caine. He's now taking any role that he's being offered. Charles Dance was there at the start of the film, but that was a no-brainer. And you'll know what I mean when you see the film. And overall, I felt the film was exploitative, silly, unnecessary, obvious, and I wasn't overly impressed, even though it was reasonably well directed.
Well, you're going to give it the low mark, I reckon, based on all of that. The First Omen, MA, 119 minutes. So go for it, Peter.
I barely give it 5 out of 10.
Gregory, 6? I'm just guessing.
Close to 5.5.
Right,
yeah.
5.5, 6, and I'm giving it a 7. So there you go. 5, 6, 7.
You've been consistent today, Alex.
Yeah, very strange. I don't know why. What's going on? Let me also mention you were in Sydney when it was torrential rain, had to be moved out of your hotel. I was there a couple of weeks earlier and I saw the opening night of West Side Story and it was magnificent. The performances, the staging on Sydney Harbour. You have got fireworks going up going off above your head. You have a police you got so much joy and delight in this story, and it's a story that I've seen many, many times on stage, but to see it outside on Sydney Harbour on a warm night was we don't have anything like it. It still gets me every time. You go to Sydney a lot too, Greg. It's beautiful, isn't it, the harbour?
Normally, yes, when you can see it.
If you can see it, exactly. You just chose the wrong time to go, but I would highly commend. You can still see it if you're going up to Sydney over the next few weeks. You can. Yeah, I mean, it is well worth seeing. I really enjoyed it, and it's Opera Australia that puts it on. Well, it's actually Handa Opera under the auspices of Opera Australia. West Side Story, an absolute ripper, and there are lots of other shows that you can go along and see as well when you get to Sydney. I was rather shocked. The show that I saw, which was National Theatre, that came out to Australia, and it was called the Lehman Trilogy. Unfortunately, there were three great actors, and the guy really took our breath away, my wife and I. He passed away a couple of weeks after he did the show. I just found it so stunning. I think he was 60 years of age. I mean, it's terrible. And of course, this week, Nathan Templeton, a 44-year-old journo from Channel 7, died unexpectedly as well. I mean, I know bad things happen to people all the time, but somehow you feel you know these people once you've seen them on stage or seen them on the screen. And valet to both of those gentlemen and anybody else that happens to have lost somebody near and dear to them in recent times or in times past. So perhaps next week I can also tell you a little bit more about some of the other shows. There's a new David Whittington play on in Sydney, which is well worth seeing. He's been in retirement. He's come out. He's done another show. It's called The Great Divide, and that's at the Ensemble Theatre in near where the Governor-General's residence is. And it's really worth seeing. That's that basically is on till the 27th of April. So if you're going to Sydney, that's a show that you should get along and see. I might be able to tell you a little bit more about that next week. But it stars two big names, Georgie Parker, and the other one is John Wood. So yeah, it's chockers, and see if you can get a ticket. Definitely worthwhile. That's about all we've got time for this week, unfortunately. So, Greg King, thank you very much.
That's all right. Thank you for having me.
And the recalcitrant one, Peter Krauss, hello. Goodbye.
Hello and goodbye.
We'll catch you next week, guys, on First On Film and Entertainment.